All right, sweet, and we're live. What's up, guys? My name is Mike. This is All Things Fish, and thanks for tuning in. We actually have a special guest with us today. Tim from Crypt Aquatics is with us, and today I'm going to try to learn a thing or two because usually you guys are probably used to me blabbing the whole time and running my mouth. So now we're going to make somebody else talk, and I get to ask the questions. How you doing
That's all
today,
right. I
Tim?
don't mind talking.
Good, good. So it looks like we've got a few people that are slowly rolling in. Unfortunately, this stream is going to start off bad, and then we'll move into some better news. It sounds like Koro's had a death in the family. So, Koro,
Oh
first, welcome.
no.
Thanks for tuning in. But it's quite unfortunate to hear that you lost somebody in the family. So my thoughts go out to you, bud.
Very sorry to hear that, man.
But what are you up to today, Tim? Other than enjoying a beverage?
Oh well, like you said, I'm enjoying a beverage. I just got out of work about 2 o'clock today, and so I just been listening to some music, getting ready for the stream, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely excited to have you. And I was talking to Tim a little bit earlier, and hopefully, this stream is kind of the introduction to almost a series where we'll probably go back and forth between Tim's channel, Crypt Aquatics, and my own, and we'll kind of just keep the shrimp thing rolling for a while because there's shrimp aren't necessarily incredibly difficult to keep, but there's definitely a lot of information out there, and it can be hard to keep track of sometimes. So the goal of this is to keep things moving, and each stream will dig a little bit deeper and deeper into the world of freshwater scrimps. And from the sounds of it, Tim might be getting salty, so maybe we can convince Tim to set up a saltwater scrimp tank.
Yes, yes. So last weekend on Friday, actually, I took a little trip about an hour from my house and found a couple of new stores. I didn't know that we had any saltwater stores in the area. And so once I found them, I knew for sure it was time to finally set up the saltwater tank that I got from my cousin. And so I've owned the tank for like 6 months now. It's just been sitting on the floor. It's time. We're doing it.
There you go, jumping right in. Uh,
Yep.
so how long have you been keeping fish, Tim, or what? Well, I guess what got you into keeping fish?
So I had a fish tank growing up as a kid. We had a small little 10 or 15 gallon tank. It wasn't anything spectacularly big or anything. Um, and then when I got closer to like high school, almost into college, I got my own tank in my bedroom. And so I was keeping that for a while. I went to college. It turned into a BBA farm. And I came back from college. The water was like halfway down. No one was taking care of it. All the fish were alive, but I had this really, really nice blackbeard algae growing, and it looked absolutely incredible. And so ever since then, I wanted to get into live plants just because looking at the natural look of the blackbeard algae all over the fake ornaments and stuff, it just really caught my eye and got me really interested. And so about 5 years ago or so, 4 or 5 years ago, I started getting into the plants a little bit. I got my first shrimp. I ordered from Aquahuna. It was a Skittles pack of Neos. So 6 months go by and they all turned to wilds, which I was okay with that because they were still breeding. They still looked really cool, you know. But that's kind of the backstory of how I got into it all.
Awesome. So how long have you been doing it now?
Oh, I'm 33 now. Um,
Okay,
well, I will be 33 Saturday. Close enough though.
awesome. Well,
But
happy birthday to you.
thanks.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, I was watching some of your stuff the other day. I know you're fairly new to posting stuff on YouTube, but it looks like you're about to hit 600 subscribers. So maybe with that,
Yeah.
that'll happen for your birthday here.
Yeah, last I checked, I was at 400 or 593. So I was 7 shy from hitting 600. I don't know if I did it yet. Let me check my phone quick. Yeah, still at 593 right now.
593. All right. Well, it looks like we have a handful of people hanging out in the stream now. So welcome everybody. Ian from Atkins Nature Aquariums is here. Steve, Big Shrimpin, is in the house. Another shrimper hanging out with us. Riva over Oral Works. Matt at Liquid Zoo OnlyFins. Mark Sturlson, good day to you. Sketty Nonas checking in from the great state of Iowa. Sharkfin Adventures. Stephen P. Looks like we'll have a pretty decent crowd today. And maybe we can get you those last 7 subs and we'll hit 600 by the end of this.
Yeah, that would be really, really awesome.
So my mic is low. I'll see if I can turn it up a little bit here. Let me know if it gets too crazy.
That sounds a little better on my end.
Okay. I need to get an actual decent mic for streams, but I'm on the road, so carrying stuff around can kind of turn into a headache sometimes.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
So, but again, welcome to everybody in the chat. I'd imagine we'll probably see a few more people roll in. But again, if you missed the intros, this is Tim from Crypt Aquatics, who is, despite the name, big into shrimp, as you can see from the photos behind you. And if I'm not mistaken, you have a couple recent accolades from some contests that you may have entered.
I've got one. It's not a couple.
Okay.
I've got one. That's right here. That's second place on my orange eye red tiger blue body colony. I sent that into the Dallas Aquashella this past spring.
Awesome. Super cool. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you
Definitely
so much.
Cool to win stuff like that. And we'll get into some of the contest stuff. May or may not be this stream. It may be down the road a little bit. And just some of the contests that are out there, what they're looking for in them, and how you can potentially submit your entries. So let's start talking about shrimp.
Okay.
You know, my background in fish keeping, I got into it when I was younger, so early 2000s. I originally started with freshwater stuff. At the time, red cherry shrimp were kind of the only shrimp out there other than ghosts and amanos that were really commercially available. And at the time, a high-grade red cherry shrimp was something that you could almost not see through. So we've come a long way. So what are some of the main species, I guess, of shrimp that you often see in the hobby now?
So the Neocaridina are always going to be the most popular, but that's because they're the hardiest shrimp, they're the most beginner friendly, and they can adapt to almost every single water supply within the US. And I say almost every water supply because there are certain areas, like 5, maybe 10% of the country, where it might not be really suitable and you're really going to struggle with it. But for the most part, the Neos are going to be the most prevalent. And that's going to include the blue dreams, the blue diamonds, the red cherries, the blood marys, yellow goldenback, green jade, green emerald, the black rose, chocolate, and all of the really varieties. So that's always going to be the most popular. They're also some of the cheapest ones. They breed super fast, so that's a huge plus with them. And there's not a whole lot of calling that you have to do as long as you're getting good genetics to begin with. And then everyone's next step, they're most likely going to start getting into the Caridina varieties. So with the Caridina varieties, you've got the crystal shrimp. That's going to be the red crystal, black crystal, golden bee, and the pure white line, which is also known as the snow whites. And somewhere along the line, there was a genetic mutation, and you started to see what's now called a Taiwan bee show up. And those are going to be the blue bolts, the red pandas, red King Kong, black King Kong, the shadow Missouri, the shadow panda. So there's a few different Taiwan bees in there. Um, a couple other of the base varieties of Caridina, you're going to have the tigers, and they're separated into two different families. You've got the serratas, and then you've got the Maryi tigers. The serratas are going to be the aura blue and the tangerine tiger, and then the Maryi is going to be the red tiger, the blue tiger, and most of the orange eye varieties.
Okay, awesome. So, like I said, my initial adventure into shrimp was with cherries. So, looking at the Neocaridina, and at the time, even early in the hobby, there were multiple grades. So, shrimp are graded regardless of the actual type. It's basically just graded according to like the quality and the color. Is that correct, Tim?
Yes. So for grading purposes, it's always going to be either opaqueness, color of the legs, and how uniform their pattern is going to be.
Okay, awesome. So Stephen mentioned that he was confused by like the Bloody Mary, the Sakura, the Fire Red, etc. And that's one thing that I never totally understood as far as the cherries. My understanding, at least at the time, was that you kind of started with your basic cherry, and then you moved up into like your PFR, Sakura, Bloody Mary, based on the more or less brightness and then the opacity. Does that track?
Yeah, so the Blood Mary is actually from a different line of Neocaridina. You've got some Neos that come from the cherry line, and then some that come from the chocolate line. So the Blood Marys actually come from the chocolate line. That's also going to include the black rose, the chocolate shrimp, and a few others. I've got a chart that I can pull up here for you guys and explain that. But
Yeah, that'd be
the
great.
fire reds and stuff like that, those are just different grades of the cherry shrimp.
Okay, super cool.
So let me share the screen.
Got a few new people walking in while you're pulling up the chat. Beta Aquatics, Jenna P. Thanks for joining us. LJ's Shrimp found us. So we got a few shrimpers in the house. So more people for me to ask questions to, because that's honestly a large part of what today's stream is me catching up with the times. Shrimp now compared to shrimp 20 years ago is drastically different. So I'm gonna see
Okay,
if I can make this
so
a little bit bigger.
over here on the right hand side is your Shoko line. I don't know if you guys can see the cursor on your screen as I move it around here, but it is on the right hand side. You've got your Shoko up top, and then it's going to split off into the Bloody Mary, the chocolate, and the Blue Diamond. From that, you're going to get the Blue Dream and stuff like that. And there is some debate on which line the Blue Dream versus Blue Diamond come from. From my experience, the Blue Diamond shows a little bit more black, or the Blue Dream shows a little bit more black than the Blue Diamond does. So I personally think that the Blue Dream is going to come from the Shoko line, where the Blue Diamond comes more from the Cherry line. So you've got you've got all the Blood Mary, the Blue Dream coming from the Shokos. You got Carbon Rillies and stuff like that. Black Rose. And then you get over to the cherry line, and that's where all of your greens come from, all your oranges, your yellows, stuff like that. You got your red really, and from the red really, their calls are going to throw the blue jellies. And those are like a sky blue type of Neocaridina, and they are supposed to breed true. I've got a colony going in the basement right now.
Okay. Is it possible? Right now it's just showing the Google image search. Is it possible to just pop up that chart itself?
Yeah, should be possible. Can't exactly see what you guys are seeing. Can you see this chart here?
Getting bigger a little bit. If you just, are you able to just click on the actual chart itself and open the chart instead of the search page, maybe?
Yeah, that opened a website itself.
Okay, perfect.
Right.
Cool. working through this. We'll get there. Thanks for your patience, guys. Let me see.
Yeah, I think I might have messed something up there.
Oh, you broke it. We're trying here. We're trying. Amisa, welcome. Thanks for hanging out with us. Lee Wilcox, I saw you pop in. Thanks. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Hopefully everybody gets to learn something today. If not, I will be excited just to learn some stuff myself. Oh boy. Meanwhile, while we're trying to sort out some visuals for you guys, there will be a giveaway at some point in time during the stream. Tim is actually working on a line of shrimp foods. So eventually we will do a little giveaway and you'll get some of the first Crypt Keeper shrimp foods to be available. So hopefully you guys have the time to stick around for that. I know personally myself, I am about out of the foods that I feed, and we'll get into foods a little bit later here after we just talk about some of the shrimp stuff in general, assuming we can get this sorted out. Let me see. Let me know if this is the right chart.
Does that work, hopefully?
Let me add that one. And newsflash, this just in. Koros says that you've officially hit 600.
Oh, awesome. I might have to do a second giveaway tonight then.
So so congratulations on that.
Thank you so much, guys.
Exciting news. I think we're trying to do the same thing at the same time right now. But I think we got it. We're making progress here.
We can see that, right?
Yep, that's much better than before.
Okay.
So I think you got it sorted out on your side there, Tim.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the chart that I'm looking at, and there are a couple of small discrepancies in there depending on who you ask within the hobby. Grant and Shelby have a really awesome live stream that completely break down all of the shrimp charts for you. If one of the mods in here could drop that link, that would probably be helpful. They know a lot more about the genetics than I do. I'm still kind of learning. I've only been in the shrimp for about 3 years or so, maybe 4. It was just before COVID that I got my first shrimp.
Awesome. Great time to get into it. So now we've got this visual here where we can see kind of some of the different lines that have developed out of the original Neocaridina that were introduced into the hobby, and just where some of the color morphs kind of fall into line. We can get different colors or a similar color from different lines. So pretty cool to see how they develop. And one of the cool things that I enjoy about shrimp, kind of like guppies, is that they reproduce pretty quickly, so you can go through multiple generations to set lines and explore different genetics a little bit.
Yes. Yep. And so with the selective breeding, you'll notice on some of your shrimp, even if you get all red shrimp, you might have some that show a little bit more yellow than others or a little bit more orange than others. If you were to take and start selectively breeding those out, give it about 10, 15 generations or so of really, really heavy calling and a lot of work, you could make any one of these colors that are on this chart just from buying one set of shrimp.
That's awesome. That's
Takes a
super cool.
whole lot of work, but it is possible.
Yep. So that's kind of a brief overview of some of the different neos that are out there. You mentioned the Caridina species, which is kind of usually people's almost stepping stone. So people initially get
Hmm.
into some of the neos and then move on to the Caridinas. The first Caridinas that I kept, crystal reds and crystal blacks, were kind of the first ones that were widely available in the market. And it's super
Uh-huh.
interesting to see how things have evolved since then. I remember crystal reds and blacks. Originally, depending on the grade, again, you were looking at $6-7 a shrimp, and then I remember when the King Kongs first came out, and they were talking like $400 and $500 per shrimp.
Yes.
So it gets pretty
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, the shrimp prices, a lot of them have come down over the years just because a lot more people have access to those lines now. So there's more breeding out there, more available to the hobbyists. But there's still a lot of lines out there that are worth a lot of money. A lot of your fancy tigers, depending on the grade, they can still go for a significant amount of money. 500-600 bucks a pop or more from some of the vendors.
Okay,
Uh,
awesome.
you're
And I
looking
remember,
for so you're looking for the most pearly white on the white sections, and like if it's a red, you really want it a bright cherry red. You don't want it to have any sort of fading into it or any sort of shadowing effect. And the same with the black. You want it to be as bold as absolute possible, and that's what's going to bring you the most money.
super cool. I remember a few years ago, uh, and this is kind of a sidebar a little bit, but the dancing man shrimp were kind of a little bit of a fad.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yep, the
so those
dancing man. It's on the top side of the shrimp. If you were to look from the top view down, it almost looks like a little stick figure of a dancing man on the
so
fancy tiger.
pretty neat. Now, Lee mentioned that he always wanted shrimp, but could never afford them. Shrimp prices, throughout the past 20 years that I've kind of been following them, Neos, like your cherries, and even some of your higher grade cherries, like your PFRs, you used to be able to get a dozen of them for like $20 shipped, and you'd usually end up with 15 or 16 from the seller. So Neos are generally pretty affordable to get into even these days.
Hmm.
Particularly if you're just looking to get into shrimp and get your feet wet. A lot of people sell their culls super cheap, particularly on the Neo side. So Neos are kind of your entry level shrimp, and then you move into the Caridina, which get far more complex. But other than the Neos and the Caridina that most people are fairly familiar with, what are some of the uncommon species out there that people are keeping, like the Sulawesi's or the Opeulas?
Yeah, so the Sulawesi come from Indonesia and the Sulawesi Islands. Those are all the same shrimp genetically. They just appear as different phenotypes. So each of the Sulawesi will crossbreed with one another, but they're really only going to produce one of the forms that they naturally present in the wild anyway, according to what I've learned from the Garden of Eden so far. I've never
Okay.
kept Sulawesi myself. I'll be perfectly honest with you, so I can't attest to that on my own accord. This is just what I have learned from other people in the hobby.
Okay. And then do you have any experience with the Opeula? I know it's not a super common one, but it seems like it's fairly easy to keep. Generally brackish type conditions. Is that right?
Yeah, so the Opaiule is from Hawaii. It is a brackish shrimp. I've never kept brackish shrimp. The one that I will be getting first, though, if once I do get into brackish water, is going to be the red nose shrimp or the Rudolph shrimp. They're interchangeable names, and they're also a brackish shrimp. They've got a really long rostrum or nose or whatever you guys want to call it, and it's bright red. The rest of the body is nice and clear, and they just look really awesome. If I could have a whole colony of those, I'd be super happy.
All right. Awesome. So we talked about kind of the stepping stones getting into shrimp and some of the different shrimp that are out there. Obviously, if somebody's looking at getting into their first shrimp, they're looking at Neocaridina, often referred to as swamp crickets, from what I've seen. because once you get a few, they explode pretty quickly. What are the differences and requirements between the shrimp, and what makes Neos so much easier than the other types that are out there?
So the Neocaridina have a lot easier time adapting to the different water parameters. They can accept very soft water. They can accept very hard water. But as with all shrimp, sudden changes is what's going to kill them. That's what's going to stress them out. They're going to start failing molds and stuff like that. But as long as you're feeding them a really good diet, a wide variety diet, your Neos, even if you don't have enough calcium in the water, you can always supplement with their food quality. Just give them an extra mineral pellet every now and then.
Okay,
And
awesome.
typically, their shell is going to harden up just enough for them to be able to molt safely and be able to produce some offspring for you.
Cool. So what are we looking for? We talked about kind of different hardness between the different species. Temperature range, is there an ideal range that you suggest for shrimp? And is it pretty much universal across the board, or do some like to be warmer and cooler?
So it is pretty much universal around the board, in my opinion. I like to keep them right around room temperature or lower. But if I need a coat on, the shrimp need a heater. That's my rule of thumb. If I'm sitting in the room and I am sweating my butt off, I need to put a fan on those tanks. So I like to keep the tanks 75 or lower on all of them, whether they're Neos or Caridina. And then I know like the Garden of Eder, they're more comfortable keeping the Neos a little bit warmer than that. And so they've got a bunch of outdoor tubs and ponds and stuff. They've got some IBC totes for Neos, and they'll go all the way up to like 85 degrees Fahrenheit, I believe, on the water temp.
Okay.
And they're pretty comfortable with that. But that's just temperature that's fluctuated by the sunlight. They have no control over that at all.
Right.
And
Do you see increased or decreased breeding activity at one end of the spectrum or the other as far as temperature goes?
yeah, absolutely. So as the temperature rises, the breeding activity increases, their feeding increases, their growth rate increases, and also their death increases. So they're going to have a shorter life at a higher temperature, but they will grow a little bit quicker. They're going to breed a little bit quicker, and they're going to eat a little bit more. At the lower
Okay.
temperatures, you're not going to have as much breeding. You're not going to have as much eating, and they're going to grow a lot slower, but they're going to live a much longer, healthier life.
Okay. And Stephen asked, what's like the minimum temperature you'd consider keeping them at year round?
So far I've kept the Neos at around 55 degrees down in the basement when I first started that rack.
Okay.
Um, and that was like April. So living here in New York, I'm really kind of apprehensive about this winter coming up. So we'll see. I might have to add a space heater down in the basement or something.
Okay. Now I've heard stories. This is one of those things like somebody knew a guy that knew a guy, but they've actually kept them
Yep.
outside where the water actually iced over on the top. Not like, I mean, we're not talking like 6 inches of ice, but a thin
Right.
layer of ice. Pretty impressive that you can keep them in such a wide temperature range and still be successful with them for sure.
Yeah, I believe Grant and Shelby have talked about that on their channel as well. They had some cold spells down in Florida. I don't recall if they actually had ice on top of their IBC totes or not, but they were pretty nervous about the cold weather, and all of their shrimp pulled right through. They
Okay,
had all
awesome.
neocaridina outside.
Okay, so pretty forgiving, which is definitely a plus, particularly for
Yes.
people looking at initially getting into them. So obviously, as small as shrimp are, you can keep them in any. I mean, there's no maximum tank to an extent, right? But as far as a tank size, what would you generally suggest for somebody looking at getting into keeping shrimp?
I wouldn't go any less than 5 gallons, even if you're experienced. But really, if you're a beginner, go with 10 gallons or larger. You're going to have less of a parameter swing, less temperature swing, and there's going to be more area for your shrimp to graze on. If you happen to miss a feeding here and there, they'll have a little bit more biofilm, a little more surface area to go about and get some sort of nutrition from.
Okay, awesome. So we're setting up a tank. We're looking at kind of a minimum of 5 to 10 gallons is would be ideal for somebody starting. Um, as far as substrate goes, is there a recommended substrate, and does the substrate of choice differ depending on the exact species, whether it's a neo or a card or a Sulawesi?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've never kept Silhouette, so I will not even comment on what substrate to use for those. We'll just get that right out of the way right now.
Appreciate the
But,
honesty.
for the Neos, you can keep them on any of the regular substrates that you would normally use within your aquarium. They can go on sand, they can go on crushed lava rock. Active substrate is perfectly fine as long as your carbonate hardness is in check so that they're not fighting each other. Which I can get into that a little bit more in a minute. But so the Neos, really any substrate's perfectly fine. You could even go bare bottom with them if you really wanted to, but that's going to lower the surface area for them to graze on if you do that. But they'll survive and they'll still be somewhat okay in a bare bottom.
Okay.
For Caridina, you really want an active substrate. So you want some sort of aqua soil that's going to lower the pH, lower the hardness. I like to use Brightwell soil. I've got Brightwell brown in most of my tanks. The one behind me right here is the Brightwell black. And that's the bag that I started with. That was my first Caridina tank I've set up. And I set that up about a month or so later when I was setting up the rack off here to the left of me. I looked at the prices on Amazon, and the price of the black Brightwell went way up, almost double the price of the brown substrate. So I made a couple of rookie mistakes, and I ordered 3 or 4 bags of the brown Brightwell soil.
Okay. Awesome.
And it's working. It's keeping them healthy, but their color just isn't really popping that much. So the darker substrate is going to make the colors pop for you, and that's the same with the Neos as well. And
Okay.
so the rack I've got down in the basement, the Neo rack, I've got black diamond blasting sand in there.
Okay. Cool. Easy enough. So you talked about the substrate and how it may affect the hardness of the water. So the Neos are pretty flexible, not super picky. The cards are a little bit more, they prefer a little tighter range. Do you have a specific GH, KH that you're looking for when you're keeping your cards?
Yeah, so the KH with the Caridina is always going to be absolute 0. And that's so that I can keep the pH as low as possible. Right now, with the active substrate that I've got, the pH in the tank over here with the black is 5.52. And in the tanks over here, it ranges from 5.58 to 5.65 right now, depending on which tank we're putting the probe into.
Okay.
So the
And
black
then are
does
you
buffer it just slightly lower.
okay? And then are you using RO for your waters and remineralizing, or
Yeah, I've got a 6-stage RO system down in the basement. My tap water is starting out at 600 or more TDS, 17 GH, 11 KH. There's no ammonia nitrite or nitrate, which is, knock on wood, awesome, you know.
right?
And but there is detectable lead in there, so I do try to get rid of all of that stuff with the RODI unit. It comes out right around 0. Sometimes it's a little bit closer to like a 5 TDS, which that's like nothing. I'm not worried about
Okay.
that, you know. And then I use the salty shrimp mineral salts and remineralize up to around 5 to 8 general hardness.
Okay. Cool. if I go head down for a second, it's because I'm taking notes for myself, and we'll explore water parameters a little bit more in the future and go a little bit more in
Yes.
depth. For cards, do you recommend that most people just go straight to like the RO, use an RO and remineralizing to get a solid baseline, or does it kind of depend
Yeah.
on your tap water?
Some people can use their tap water. I don't know very many areas. I think like Washington, California has soft enough water, but you really want it to be zero carbonate hardness and less than like 8 on the general hardness side.
Okay.
So if you're not hitting that already, you need to strip that out somehow. And an RODI filter is going to be the absolute best way.
Mhm. Okay. And then talking on kind of water quality and potential additives, I saw Coro asked this question. This isn't something that I'm particularly familiar with, so I'm going to send this one straight to you. Basically asked about adding iodine to help encourage molts, and is this a factor in freshwater shrimp?
So I have heard something about using iodine in the shrimp tanks for something. I have not done it myself. I haven't really looked into it at all. I don't feel comfortable at all commenting on this, to be perfectly
Okay.
honest.
So it said,
But
I'm
to
not.
encourage some healthy molts, if you haven't seen a molt in a tank in a while, just do a really heavy water change. The change in temperature, the subtle change in temperature, and the subtle change in water hardness, that's going to force them to want to get out of their shell and form something new.
Okay, cool. Makes sense. I said I'm not. I'm obviously asking you questions because I'm not super well versed in the specifics of shrimp. However, I've been around for a while and kind of paid attention to it over the course of my time in the hobby. And I've never heard of this. So I would say Coro, just general advice. If it's something that you haven't heard of, or if not a lot of people are doing it, then it's probably not something that's required. I'm not going to say it does or doesn't benefit because I obviously have no experience in it. I don't have any knowledge of it. Just kind of a general, guideline as to how I go about some things in the hobby, I guess. And before I forget, Jenna asked about potentially auctioning off some shrimp at the Clash.
Yeah, so each of the shrimp that I enter into the show, I will have available for an auction for the auction afterwards. I haven't decided if I want to just do it as one mixed grab bag or all individually, but I do have I've got 10 shrimp entered and 3 different snails entered.
Okay,
And
awesome. And
so each of the show entries will be in the auction. I just haven't decided if I'm doing it all as a single grab bag or individually. I will not be at the auction myself. I've got my sister's wedding. She planned it 2 months ago, way too soon. So I
okay,
couldn't even back out of the Clash or get her to change her mind or anything. And
awesome.
so unfortunately, I'll be leaving the Clash at like 4 in the morning on Sunday. So, but you will
That
see some stuff
happens.
in the auction from me.
Okay, cool. And then we'll get into kind of sourcing and buying and selling shrimp a little bit later down the road and some more of the contest stuff. I just didn't want to miss out on Jenna's comment there. Make sure everybody got their questions answered as we move through. A few new
Yeah.
people popped in just real quick. Zen Ginger, what's up? Eric Wyrock, thanks for joining us. 3G, I see you. Hope you're having a great day. So we're talking about water quality, and we're currently talking about potentially adding some sort of remineralizing agent to the water. Jenna wants to set up a 5-gallon Carradina tank. They were thinking about using distilled water and adding a GH supplement. What do you generally see as far as quality goes using distilled versus like full up RODI?
So the tank behind me, I started that with distilled water. I did not have an RODI when I first got into Carradina. That lasted for 2.5, maybe 3 months before I got really irritated at going to the store every single week for 10 gallons of water or whatever I needed. You know, it was just a pain, but it did
Oh,
work. One thing I do want to note about any sort of bottled water product, a lot of them are forced to put in a little bit of chlorine for legal and safety purposes. So you
okay.
still want to degas your bottled water as well.
Awesome. And then talking RODI units, Misa asked for recommendations. I personally, I have a Liquigen 5 stage that I got off of Amazon. I know Bulk Reef Supply is super popular. Air Water Ice is a big one. It's going to cost you a few more bucks. But do you have any recommendations on an RODI unit? How many stages? What size they you potentially want, etc.
Uh, Basically, everything that you said. If you go to Bulk Reef Supply, they've got everything that you want and then some. Um, there isn't a single setup that you can try to do that they can't satisfy with a single unit. So go shop there. If you've got a lot of dissolved solids in your tap water source, you might want a second deionizer membrane in there. But even if you get like a 4 stage unit or a 5 stage unit, you can always add another line into it. You can always rig something up and just put an extra membrane in there, get an extra stage of filtration out of it if you still need to get more impurities out.
So, and that's one of the things that I like about. I know a lot of people use what is the RO Buddy. I think that Petco sells the smaller, more compact unit,
Yep.
but it kind of uses proprietary cartridges and media, if I'm not mistaken. For the most part, if you're looking at like a bulk reef supply unit, it's going to use pretty universal parts as far as media and membranes go. So it's easy to swap your media. I actually did a video on that. You can swap all 5, 6 stages in about 15 minutes, easy enough. And then you can also, it's easy to add additional stages. So if you have chloramine in your water versus just chlorine, it depends on what your city water uses. I'd suggest a 5 stage to clean it up. But if you find that a 4 stage is doing the trick, you can get by. Otherwise, you can continuously add stages depending on your needs as you kind of get a little more in depth into things.
Right. So, like how a 5 stage is good for you, I've got a 6 stage here, and it's mostly okay. I'm still getting like five or so TDS coming out the back end of it, unfortunately.
Okay. So I'm running a 5 stage. My tap water's roughly 500 to 550, and I just right after I replaced the media, I was getting anywhere from 2 to maybe 6 to 9 TDS. Kind of depends on the temperature and just when the last time I used the unit was.
Yeah.
So awesome. So we talked about the water. We kind of talked about the tank setup. Let's talk about food a little bit. Do different
Oh, okay.
species require different food, or can you use one food, or do you offer a variety? What do you suggest?
Variety is absolute key, and I did do a live stream about 6 months ago or so, all about food. I pulled out every single shrimp food that I've got. It was about 20 packages, if I had to guess. But basically, you want to feed them protein, you want to feed them mineral, and you want to feed them substance. So for the substance, a lot of times the biofilm that's actually in the tank is plenty sufficient. That should be about 60% of their diet. And then you've got protein. That's going to build their flesh up and make them strong enough to be able to peel their shell off when they're ready to molt. Um, so that's super important. It's going to help them grow up. It's going to help them breed more. It's going to help their egg development and help them to generate more offspring for you more readily. With the mineral foods, that's going to be a lot of calcium and magnesium added into it, whether it's in their pure form or through botanicals such as spinach. And that's going to help to harden their shell just enough so that they can molt. And just be
Okay.
cautious of that because too much mineral is going to make them fail a molt because their shell becomes too hard to be able to peel off. So it's kind of like a really fine line that you have to straddle between with not enough mineral versus too much mineral. But once you find that happy medium and your shrimp are happy, you're golden.
Awesome.
And with the neos, it's not nearly as much of an issue. It's with the Caridina, which have a much thicker shell, that you might see some sort of struggle here and there with them.
Okay. Now I know I mentioned earlier that you're kind of getting into your own line of shrimp foods, which we'll give away in the stream. For somebody that's just looking to get something off the shelf real quick without really digging down into the weeds of the ingredients list, do you have a couple go-tos that you'd recommend people just kind of start with and keep on hand?
I recommend the Shrimp Envy line. The whole line is awesome. So they've got the food fight. They've got a protein. They've got a protein formula. Sorry, lost for words there. They've got shell formula. They've got a complete formula. They've got bee pollen. They've got a snowflake. They're really, really awesome. Each of their foods is all vegetable based. There's no animal byproducts in there at all. So you don't have any fish meal or shrimp meal or anything like that in there. Being all botanicals, it is going to give a little bit of a benefit to their resistance to bacteria and infections, which is really, really awesome. They're made right here in the USA. Rob and Cherie do a really awesome job making sure that the quality is absolute top notch for all of your lovely shrimp.
That's awesome. Just a quick note before we continue down that path a little bit. I saw that Tom mentioned that the Clash will have a couple bulk reef supply RODI units at the Clash to raffle and give away. That's super awesome. One of the reasons that I'd strongly encourage people to support bulk reef supply is because they're really involved in communities and clubs, and they offer awesome customer service. And I'm not sponsored, whatever. It's just my experience, and they're always more than willing to help out clubs, and definitely a good company that stands behind all their products. So,
yeah, yep. I haven't ordered from Bulk Reef Supply myself yet, but from everybody I've talked to within the hobby, whether it be influencers or just beginners getting into the hobby, they all absolutely praise the company. So I will be doing some business with them in the future when I upgrade my RODI system. And I'm definitely going to be doing some business now that I'm setting up the saltwater tank.
So awesome. And despite the name, they did recently launch the official freshwater side of their site. So
Oh, okay.
those of
I
us
didn't see that.
they're largely geared towards freshwater. They have some stuff that's a little bit easier to find without digging through all the salty stuff.
Nice.
You mentioned talking about the botanicals offered in some of the foods. So
Yeah.
botanicals, we're talking like various seed pods and leaves, and even driftwood. Are there things that you place into your tank, and what are the benefits of using those in your tank?
Yeah, so I use a variety of botanicals. I get a lot of them from KJE Aquatics. And so I use alder cones and almond leaves primarily. But I do also use some twisty pods and some other types of pods and weird bits and bobs that he has on his site. I just get a mixed bag and whatever I'm feeling that week, I'll just kind of throw one in here, and
Okay.
walk away, call it a day.
Okay, awesome. Now, do the shrimp they actually consume the botanicals themselves, or are they feeding on the biofilms and stuff that grow on those botanicals, or is it a combination of both?
So it really depends on which botanical we're speaking of. A lot of the pods and stuff, the shrimp are just going to consume the biofilm that happens to form on them. But then you get some mulberry leaves, guava leaves, stuff like that, and the leaf breaks down quick enough so that it can become a food source for the shrimp.
Okay, awesome. So obviously we've talked about the shrimp kind of feed on these biofilms. If somebody wanted to set up a tank, we talked about a 10-gallon tank. We'll say they're setting up neos. They throw some sand in the bottom. Can they throw a good cycled sponge filter in there right away, or do you suggest they kind of wait and let that tank, kind of develop a little bit before they start adding shrimp in there?
Are we talking about a beginner or someone that has been around the block once or twice?
Well,
Or
we'll lean towards
so,
somebody on the newer side of the hobby.
so if someone's brand new to the hobby, I recommend just setting it up proper with a clean filter, just the substrate, the water, the filter. Keep it running for a solid month or two. You can use some ammonia product to establish the cycle in the tank. If you don't do that, find a local fish store, ask them for a couple of pest snails to toss in there. just so that there's some ammonia contributing to establishing a cycle for you. But you really want to wait a couple of months for the tank to really, really mature. All of the glass is going to turn slightly cloudy a little bit, and you won't really notice it until you start to scrape the tank, and then you see how clear the tank becomes. But once you see that, you're typically safe to start putting shrimp in, as long as you don't have any ammonia or nitrate in there.
Okay. And then my go-to for a shrimp tank is an air-driven sponge filter. What would you recommend for filtration on a tank?
That's what I've got in all of mine. That's why I've got this huge filter right here, or huge air pump rather. But each and every one of the tanks up here has a sponge filter, and the same with the basement. The only tank in the whole house that does not have sponge filter is the 75 gallon.
And if you're running something like say you have a hang-on back or a canister filter, are there any precautions that you would suggest taking? Obviously, there's a lot more flow.
Yes.
Anything to avoid keeping the shrimp out of your filter?
Yeah, so there's two things with using a HOB filter or even a small canister filter. The shrimp can get sucked up inside, especially the babies. And so they make these little screens that you can slide over the AquaClear filters in particular. I don't know if they fit on all hang-on back filters or not. But it's like a fine mesh screen, kind of like what you would use for confectionery sugar when you're making fried dough. But put that over the intake, and none of the shrimplets are going to get sucked up. Another option is Corey over at Aquarium Co-op has some really, really awesome pre-filter sponges that just slide right over the intake. And that's going to prevent a lot of them from going in too. It
Okay.
is a little bit more coarse of a pour on them. So some of the really, really newborn might be able to get in there, but it's not enough to where it's causing a huge amount of distress on my end, like mentally. So
Okay. Now, if I
I'm
have just
comfortable either way.
if I have some sponge media in one of my canisters or in one of my HOBs, can I just cut a hole down the middle of that and slip it over to the filter? Will that work okay?
Yeah, why not? It's just
Okay.
anything so that the shrimp have something to grab onto and prevent them from being sucked in.
Okay. We talked about water quality and the filter. Obviously, in a shrimp tank, you mentioned if you're keeping Caridina specifically, you're worried about your GH, keep your KH fairly low. Are there some test kits that you recommend? Keep it on hand.
Yep. So if you want to go with the cheaper end of the test kits, I like the API test kit, the Freshwater Master test kit. Plus, you're also going to need the GHKH test kit. It's two different kits that you have to get, but well worth the money. So the Master Test Kit is about $35, $40 retail, and then the GHKH is $10 to $15 depending on where you shop. But definitely well worth the money. You're going to get at least a year or two supply out of the test kit, even if you're testing twice a week.
Okay. Coro mentioned that Bulk Reef Supply has a test tube stirrer for the dang API nitrate test. Steven suggested a trebuchet to just throw the whole test kit away. I'm right there with you. That thing is not only I find it inaccurate, but an absolute pain and pretty easy to mess up.
Yeah, that nitrate test, the reagent likes to settle down at the bottom and likes to really stick to the bottom of the bottle. So what I do before I take a test with the API brand, I'll take the test kit and I'll just absolutely slam it on my other hand just to try to shake it off the bottom of the bottle. And after like 5 minutes or so, usually it's pretty much good.
Okay. And how do you feel about test strips? I personally don't use them.
So my opinion on test strips, they're better than not testing at all. If you're not going, if the choice is use this test strip or just don't test it at all because all I have is this liquid test kit that I'm annoyed with, dip the strip in. At least see where you're at and use that as your guideline. And once that goes off from what you're normally used to seeing, then pull out the full test kit and do a proper test and see exactly what's going on.
Okay. Awesome.
But a,
I
but a test
think
kit
that's
is
great advice.
only going to be accurate if you're actually using it. And that's my firm opinion.
Countless test kits that I've accumulated over the years that I probably used a handful of times, and then they've just sitting there collecting dust, and most likely the reagents are well beyond expiration.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I've got a Nutrifin test kit right now, and I only use like a couple of the different things that it tests for. It tests for like 12 different parameters in the tank, and I'm testing for ammonia, nitrate, and pH. That's it.
okay.
And GH and KH as well. But
Okay.
the calcium, the iron, chelated iron, phosphate, all that, I'm not testing for that regularly. I don't have the time. I
Right.
don't have the patience.
Right. So we mentioned sponge filters, canister filters, HOBs. What about HMFs or Hamburg Matten filters, or even an undergravel filter?
So I've never tried the Matten filters myself, but it's the same exact concept as just a sponge filter, but it does have a lot of extra surface area because it's the whole side of the tank versus like a 2 inch round by 4 inch high sponge. So you've got a lot more surface area for the bacteria to build, a lot more surface area for biofilm to build. So your shrimp will have a little bit more of a food source for them, and also the bacteria colony is going to be a little bit bigger to be able to take care of ammonia swings quicker.
Okay. Yeah. So I do. I've run shrimp in tanks with sponge filters, and I do have a couple tanks set up with an HMF filter. And everything, I think everything that you said about the HMF is spot on. And it doesn't, obviously, an HMF takes up a large portion of the tank if you put it on a whole side, which is the way I have it set up now. There are a couple companies out there that have started to 3D print magnetic corner brackets, basically, for an HMF. So you take a piece of foam and it bends it into a corner. So it takes up a lot less space, but you're still getting that additional surface area. And
Oh,
you're
okay.
definitely getting more biofilm and area for shrimp to graze and feed on. So a couple of people mentioned other test kits as far as brands, Salifert, Sarah, Nutrifin. I think they're all more accurate generally than API. API is kind of API is the so you may use a test strip to get a rough baseline and then use an API to test to get a little closer. API is kind of like that test strip in the liquid test world compared to like a Sarah Nutrifin. It's a higher end. For most people, they don't need to be that precise. But if you really want to get it dialed in and you want something super reliable, definitely, if you have the money to spend, I think you'll find it worth your while. Like I said, for most
Yeah.
folks, just getting close is plenty.
Yep. And I've got the Nutrifin test kit from Fluval, and it's absolutely awesome. It tests for like 12 different parameters. It was $100. But I don't need to test all of those different parameters. I'm
Right.
not keeping the high tech plants like I used to. You know, I disconnected the CO2 in the tank behind me, not because of the shrimp, because I had it going with the shrimp for 10 months before I disconnected it. I only disconnected it because I had to get rid of scuds and I didn't feel like reconnecting it. But that's another story for another day.
Right.
But I don't need to test everything that's in that $100 kit. So going forward, I'm only going to be buying the API brand.
Okay.
It's just
Cool.
not worth it anymore.
Awesome. And I think now that freshwater people are getting a little more in depth into testing and potentially running something like a monitor and controller, I think we'll see that some of the stuff like the digital checkers that a lot of reef guys have been using. I think we'll start seeing those in the freshwater hobby a little bit more often.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool. I know there's a couple that are available for retailers, but I don't think there's any available for hobbyists yet.
So not quite yet. Like I said, hopefully the industry continues to grow and we see some of that stuff bleed over. So you're testing. Maybe you test and you find that your parameters out of whack, and you need to do a water change. How often are you doing a water change? Is it scheduled or is it triggered by something specific? And then how much are you generally changing at a time in a shrimp tank?
So the answer is yes to both of those. It is scheduled and it's triggered by something. So I try to change my water every other week at least, and I try to go about 20% on each of the tanks. Um, if I have extra time, I'll do it more frequently. If I'm running short on time or have something going on, I have no problem going 3, 4 weeks before doing a water change on a shrimp tank.
Okay.
Each time that I do a water change, there's going to be some shrimp molting, and I know this because I'll see the molt, but I'll also see all of the males dancing around the tank, swimming around, trying to find that female that just molted. That way they can impregnate her. So even if I do wait a little bit, I'll have a couple extra females that molt. So a couple extra more that are buried up. No big deal on my end.
Mhm.
Some things that'll trigger a water change. If I'm starting to see some health issues, so if they're showing some lethargy or something like that, I'll do a water change. If I see a lot of deaths, I'll do a water change. If I start to see necrosis, I'll do a water change, plus I'll add a fan on top, because that's typically from high temperature causing a bacterial issue.
Okay.
So I'll throw a fan on top, get the temperature down a little bit more, and typically it's going to correct itself. Last summer, around this time, my yellow king kong colony started to show necrosis. A few of them got that really, really milky white color all through the flesh, and so I tossed a fan up top and did a heavy water change. I lost one, but the rest all made it, so we did come out of that quite well. And that's just kind of the method that I've stuck since then.
Okay.
And then if any of
And
the parameters are swinging way up, I'll do a water change quick.
okay. And you mentioned heat potentially causing problems. Earlier, Stephen P. asked a question that I kind of put on the back burner for a second until we got here. He said he
Yep.
put some shrimp outside. Now he's in Louisiana, so the temperature is obviously a little bit higher. And
Right.
he noticed that either he wasn't seeing a gain in his population or he just wasn't really seeing his shrimp. Could that heat be attributed to that? Is there a certain temperature range where maybe there's not enough oxygen, or you just see more bacterial infections that would cause a decrease or problems in your colony?
Yeah, so depending on the shrimp variety, whether it's a Caridina or Neocaridina, if it has tiger gene versus Taiwan gene, if it is a Caridina, the temperature is going to be slightly different. It can withhold. The Neos can go up to like 85 degrees or so very, very safely. For Caridina, you really want them 76 or below. 74 is really, really a lot better. In the Tigers, like 78 ish, that's really when you're going to start to see some issues.
Okay. And what kind of fungal or bacterial infections are kind of common keeping shrimp? I guess I've seen some weird green stuff and I've seen some white fuzzy stuff. What are
Yep.
some of the more common infections that you see, and how do you go about treating them?
So I can't pronounce any of them at all. So everyone in chat, please make fun of me right now. You got Bordetella, Scarlaria. You got the necrosis, which is just a bacterial infection internally. Um, and then you have some parasites that get into the tank, like Hydra and Planaria.
Okay. And can some of those be treated with some sort of like antibiotic or a medication, or is it best to just more or less cull the infected specimens?
So it's always going to be best to call the ones that are visibly infected. At least segregate them to their own water supply. That way they're not infecting the others. But to treat them, increase the botanicals, use a little bit of botanical tea. Take some alder cones, some almond leaves and stuff, simmer it in water for a little bit until the water turns pretty brown. Toss the water in the tank after it cools down. And then you could also use a peroxide treatment. I haven't done that myself yet, but Bob Moss Nano Tanks does have an awesome video on how to do that and what it does treat in his experience. And then for like the planaria and hydra, you can use a product called No Planaria. And the instructions are right on the bag. I forget how much per gallon that you're supposed to use. I've got the bag right up there right now, behind the camera. But that's pretty easy to use. It's a 2-day dose, I believe it is. Just be careful that it doesn't cycle your bacteria colony in your filter, because it could cause an ammonia spike.
Okay, cool, awesome. Rob's from the Aquarium Guys podcast stopped by. Welcome. Thanks for stopping by, Rob's. I actually did. So they run a podcast over at the Aquarium Guys. They cover a wide variety of topics, from running an actual store, shrimp, rainbows, a little bit of everything. I stopped by their podcast one day. Had a lot of fun talking with those guys. So just real quick, once you guys are finished up here, I'd encourage you guys to go check them out. I listen to them on Spotify. They also have a Discord. I'm actually talking to Rob's about doing another broadcast, and Rob's, maybe we can get Tim on there and we can talk some more shrimps over there and have some fun with it. But so Rob's mentioned super chats and stuff. I did turn super chats memberships on for the channel. Zen Ginger, thanks for being a member. I saw Stephen P earlier. There's a few others, so thanks for your support. Any support that comes into the channel is going to go right back out in the forms of more or less giveaways, etc. So we'll move on. Just want to give a couple quick shout outs there. So thanks for bearing with me. So we've got our tank set up, filters running, water's just perfect. We've got a few shrimp. Or maybe we want a few more shrimp. How many shrimp do you suggest starting a colony with? Can I just go get like 6 shrimp and start a colony, or do you recommend maybe 12 or even more?
You could start a colony with 2 shrimp as long as you've got 1 male and 1 female. I don't recommend that. I recommend starting with 1 to 2 per gallon of water volume that you have, and start with a minimum of 10 total. And that's just so that you can guarantee a good mix of male and female.
Okay.
But theoretically, all it takes is 1 male and 1 female to do the tango.
So I generally, with Neos, since they're often a little bit more affordable, I try to start with about a dozen myself. Find that gives you pretty good odds of getting a couple males, a couple females, and covers any potential losses that you might have as you begin to learn shrimp and the shrimp adapt to your parameters. I have some blue bolts. I did start that colony with 6, but I would generally suggest more is usually a little bit better myself. So we've got our shrimp in the tank now. They're healthy. There's no parasites, no infections. About how often can you expect them to reproduce, and what kind of numbers of offspring can you see?
So the number of offspring that you're going to see is going to vary by the age of the shrimp and also the variety. Neos typically produce a little bit more offspring per clutch than Caridina do. And you could see like 30 to 40 babies per month on the Neos. With the Caridina, it could be like 15 to 20, maybe a little bit more per month per female.
All right. And then when you acquire new shrimp, maybe you're adding more shrimp to an existing colony, do you quarantine your shrimp at all, or you just kind of toss them in and hope for the best?
So if I was to get 2 different sources of shrimp of the same type of shrimp, personally, I'd probably keep them into 2 separate tanks, make sure each of them are breeding true to the variety that I ordered, because not always are they going to produce the same rate of the same pattern as the second colony that you buy. So that's really the biggest thing with that. But as far as health wise, as long as you're buying from a very reputable place, somewhere that's breeding right here in the USA, you should be pretty much safe. But quarantining is always going to be a much safer practice.
Awesome. Do you have any recommended trusted sources that are kind of your go-tos when you're looking to acquire new shrimp?
Yeah, so if you're looking for Neocaridina, Mark Shelley has some really awesome ones. If you're looking for either Neocaridina or Caridina, check out the Garden of Eder. And if you're not really particular on if they're homebred versus imports, you can go to bipetshrimp.com. You can go to Flip Aquatics, and there's a few other places.
Okay. Is bipet shrimp? Is that Eric Lucas?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Super cool. And then so we mentioned that Caridina are fairly picky about their parameters, but Neos can survive in generally a pretty wide variety. Can you mix the two in the same tank? Will they get along, or will they interbreed or anything?
You can mix them. They will not interbreed. They can outcompete one another for food and for breeding. So that's something to look out for. Typically, one is going to dominate the space over time. But the Neos are a lot safer to go into Caridina parameters versus the other way around. Because the Neos can accept a wider range of parameters than the Caridina can. So if you are
Okay.
going to mix them, put a Neo into a Caridina parameter tank.
Okay. So your Neos won't interbreed with your Caridina. Your various Neo color morphs will interbreed. Like all the Neos can interbreed, correct? Regardless of whatever
Yep.
line they're from. Okay.
Yep. So all of the Neo colors can interbreed, and within about 3-4 generations, you're going to see a lot of them are going to be coming out clear and brown and more of the wild colors.
Okay. So I see a lot of people setting up Skittles tanks. I'd imagine it kind of remains a Skittles tank with different colors for about 3-4 generations, and then it's just kind of a mess.
Yeah, that was my first shrimp tank that I set up. I got a bag of Skittles from Aquahuna, and they were pretty cheap, but they were really, really bright and vibrant when they came in. They looked really awesome. About 6 months later, after they had a couple of offspring batches, they were all coming out brown and clear and gray, and nothing like what I originally wanted. But they were still really, really cool, so I kept them.
Okay, cool.
And
Are
if
there,
you
are there
take a look back, if you take a look back on my channel, you'll see this tank where it first started out when they were all in their wild form still, before I swapped it over to Caridina parameter.
Okay, cool. Are there different types of Caridina that will or won't interbreed? Like, so if you set up a Caridina tank, can you put like tigers in there with bolts or anything, or will they cross? Or there certain strains that you can keep together that won't breed together?
Yeah, so there's two varieties that I know of that will never, or supposedly will never crossbreed. That's the raccoon tiger and the stardust tiger.
Okay.
I've got both of those going right now, and I have not seen any new patterns at all from the raccoon tank. And I've got those with backline tie bees, which is a cross between a Taiwan bee and a Serrata tiger. So either a tangerine tiger or a blue tiger. And then up there, I've got the Stardust, and those were in a tank with Yellow King Kong, which is another hybrid. It's a hybrid with a tangerine tiger and something else that's unknown in the hobby. But I have seen some weird things with that I haven't really talked about online yet.
Okay.
Me and Greg have kind of been talking in the backseat about that a little bit, and I've still got a lot more testing to do. And
Okay.
we're going to leave it at that.
All right. Awesome. It's always cool to see stuff pop up in the hobby. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So do you have any? We've thrown a lot of names out there, and with the Neos, generally, the names largely related to the actual color. Getting into some of these Caridina types and like the tigers and bolts. Do you have any pictures of some of those specimens you can show us? Just kind of show us the variety of what's out there.
Yeah. I could try, but we'll see if it works properly
Okay.
because of that last mess up.
So,
Again, this is
well,
just a bunch of Google images that I pulled up for the stream, so
okay.
hopefully I can get them to show properly.
Okay. Or do you have
So
do you have an image of the shrimp that won the contest, that second place contest at Aquashella that you were talking about earlier?
on my computer, no, but I do on my phone. Um,
Okay.
if I join StreamYard from my phone, can you add me on there? Or wait, I can't share screen on my phone, can I?
I'm not sure. I've never personally done it. If you want to send it through Facebook Messenger, I can pop them up on my computer though, and
Okay,
we can take a
that'll
look.
work.
So,
Then while
um,
I do that, do you want to get a giveaway hashtag going?
yeah. So, we'll just use hashtag Tim. We'll keep it simple, TIM, and that will get you entered in for a pack of Tim's new food that he's going to tell us all about too.
Yeah, so this is a snowflake food for shrimp. It's 100% soybean hull, all natural, and it really attracts a lot of shrimp. It's a good vacation feeder food. Um, I have no problem dropping in a pellet or two into every single tank before I walk away for 2 whole weeks. I'm that confident in how safe it is. It doesn't accumulate any ammonia. It's not going to spike any sort of toxins for you. So definitely an awesome food source for your shrimp.
Awesome. And then you're working on some other foods as well that aren't quite available just yet, right?
Right. I'm working on some shrimp lollipops right now. Um,
Okay.
I've got a bunch of botanicals downstairs that I'm working with and kind of playing around here and there. And once they're ready, I will let the audience know, and we'll definitely have some more given away of those in the future once I get them where I'm happy with them.
Okay. Awesome. And then I'm familiar with a shrimp lolly or a shrimp lollipop. Do you want to explain kind of the general concept behind it? Because if you look at a lot when they share
Yeah,
photos, you can see a bunch of shrimp gathered around a stick. But what exactly is going on there?
yeah. Hold on a second, and I'll grab one of them.
Awesome. So once again, if you enter just hashtag Tim, like right there, you'll be entered in to win some free food from Tim that he's starting to put out for shrimps. So we'll get some more details on some of the newer stuff that he's working on in just a minute here. Meanwhile, keep plugging away, submit your entries, and then we'll use the fishfam.link giveaway tool via my phone this time to give somebody some free fish food. So, courtesy
Okay,
of Tim.
so this here's a shrimp lolly, and the dark part that you see is the food that's on it. Bunch of different botanicals that are smeared right on, and you're gonna stick that right into the substrate. It's gonna stick up like that. The shrimp are just gonna keep crawling up it while they graze and eat. Bunch of babies are gonna be down here on the substrate level. It's gonna make for a really awesome picture or video. And I love that, Coral. Thank you so much. but so yeah, that's what a shrimp lolly is, and those
Awesome.
will be coming soon. They will not be available for the Clash though. I am very sorry. If you want some shrimp lollies, I heard that LJ's Shrimp and Lane to Lake Aquatics is going to have some homemade ones there that they're bringing. So check out their booth.
Awesome. So earlier, Jenna mentioned that there will be a shrimp contest at the Clash. There will also be a shrimp contest at Fishtoberfest if you're in the Pacific Northwest. So what? Let's talk about the concept is or the contest itself. When you're submitting a shrimp to a contest, kind of are there different categories or classes, or just kind of all right, submit your shrimp and the judges will just pick their favorite? How does this kind of work?
Yeah, so there are different categories. For Aquashella, I forget if it was 5 or 6 different categories. It was Neocardina, Taiwan B, Crystal B, hybrids, normal eye, hybrids with a either orange eye or hollow eye. Um, there might have been another category, I forget. But basically, they're graded on a variety of factors: uniformity of size, uniformity of pattern, the what their legs look like, their opaqueness, their color, and overall impression.
Okay. Awesome. And I know like Aquashella does a contest. It seems like they're picking up a little bit more. I know each year there's like annual USA contest. Do I have to show up to these contests? Like, do I actually have to be there in person? Because some of these are pretty far away.
No, I mailed mine into the Aquashella Dallas contest this past spring.
Okay. So you just ship your stuff in and they take care of it for you and throw it in some sort of display tank, I'm guessing.
Yeah, yep. So I shipped it in, and Grant and Shelby were really, really awesome and took very good care of them. They all arrived alive. They went home to them and also some others very, very alive and very happy. And I just sent you one picture of the orange eye red tiger blue body,
Okay.
the second place winner.
Awesome.
I
So
do have a
you
better
mail your
video. I do have a better video on my channel as a YouTube short of that colony. Let me see if I can't find it on here so that you could just share it right on the stream. Let me
Yeah,
find
you
the
bet.
original file.
Awesome. So you mail your shrimp into this contest. You either win or you weren't number one. What happens with the shrimp after the contest's over, though?
So after the contest is over, you could either pick them up yourself or you could donate them to one of the volunteers. Or if you happen to know someone in the organizing committee and they want to be very, very nice and generous, they might pack it up and send it back to you.
Okay.
I chose to just donate it to whoever was volunteering at the contest, and that was for all of the colonies that I sent down there, because they put in a lot of work to organize everything and to conduct everything, and they deserve to have something to go home with. So
Awesome.
someone got my
That's great.
purple colony, someone got the orange eye colony, someone got the red and Nancy colony that I sent down, and the yellow goldenbacks.
Oh, wow. Super cool. So Jenna mentioned that the Clash will have a killifish show because it's there will be an AKA guy there. Their stuff looks like it's auctioned off after the fish show. I know that's seems like it's fairly common practice with guppies and killifish. Um, so super cool. So you can enter these contests, and some of them, like there's international entries. So all you do is mail it in, and you hope for the best. How often, or have you experienced where you mailed a shrimp in for a contest and maybe it didn't make it because of the shipping, or maybe it died while it was there?
I haven't had any die on me while I sent them down there, but last year when I went to Chicago Aquashella, I did happen to see that there were like 4, maybe 5 tanks that had a big X in them because they just didn't make it for whatever reason, either never got mailed out or arrived dead.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I did bring some shrimp with me to Chicago that I was going to enter. I had some Tang Tai, which were a crossbreed between a Tangerine Tiger and Taiwan Bee. And I had them in a breather bag. I put them in my suitcase, put them on the plane. When I got into the hotel room, I discovered that they were all pink. I'm thinking that whatever fabric softener or detergent I was using for my laundry happened to seep into the breather bag. That's just my guess. I don't know for sure, but I wasn't able to enter any of those last year, unfortunately.
Okay.
Um, so it does happen, and it's very, very sad. No one ever wants to see that happen.
Okay. So the image you sent over, you said that was the shrimp or a shrimp from the line that you won the contest with. Now, what type of shrimp is this as far as
Yeah.
species and color morph?
So that's orange eye, red tiger, blue body, and that one there in particular is buried up. You can see how low extended her belly is, where her swimmerettes are. And when they get buried up, they usually present a little bit more of a red color like that there. And I just sent you a little video clip of the colony that I sent into Aquashella.
Okay, cool. So now this is a female, right? Obviously she's buried. So buried,
Yep.
they carry the eggs and their swimmerets underneath. It's pretty obvious. How can you differentiate a female from a male if it's not buried or saddled?
So if it's not buried or saddled, you would see a difference in the shape of the shrimp. So from where like the neckline is down to the tail and the back, it would be more straight if it was a male. Where on this one here, it's swooped downward a little bit.
Okay.
And also, there's a difference in the antenna size. I forget if the male has a really, really long antenna or the female. It's one of the two. I typically just wait until they're an adult, though, and that's what I go by.
Okay. Awesome. Easy enough. So I'm gonna see if I can do this real quick, and I will post the link to Tim's video so you guys can check out that colony. Maybe eventually. And then we'll do a giveaway. And if anybody's got any questions, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, we're going to wrap it up shortly after the giveaway. However, Tim and I have been talking, and this is something that we'd like to continue doing. So if you guys enjoyed it, found it useful, excuse me, regardless of whether it was entertainment value, or if you learned something, or if you feel like you could continue learning stuff, please let us know. Comments, etc. Let us know in the chat, and then if this is something that you guys would like to see us continue to do, then we'll go more in depth into specific water parameters, how you can achieve those, etc. And then get into some more breeding, and then something that I'm personally interested in is the specific genetic and line breeding and some of the different color variations. So let me see if I can get this video up real quick. Laptop's dying over here. Can't wait to get home. Ian was talking about setting up some shrimp now. So Ian is largely salty. Obviously, there's a variety of saltwater shrimp, but he's got everything on hand. He's got some glass laying around, and he's already got the RODI unit. So the expensive stuff is out of the way, Ian. So you might as well just jump into the
Just
game.
do it. Just do it.
LJ's Shrimp said, "Good job, Tim. Obviously, you know your stuff. I appreciate you letting me harass you for an hour and a half and bug you with questions. I think this video should work now. LJ's Shrimp, maybe if we continue to do this, we could get you up on the old panel here. We can get a few minds working towards this. I'll see what kind of quality I can get out of this video here." I'm doing some research on the old OBS stuff that all the streaming pros seem to use. So I'm slowly learning. So once I get home, I'm gonna have some new software to play with.
I've never played around with OBS yet. Would it be easier for
Neither
me
have
to
I.
just do a live video from my phone? The tank's like 2 feet away from me here.
Oh, definitely easy enough. I'm riding the struggle bus over here trying to share screens and whatnot. If you were in my stream the other day where we gave some stuff away, it ended up turning into an absolute disaster. So Zen did ask a question about the food, if it's geared towards a certain species, or if it would be great for Neos and cards as well.
Oh, this food here is great for Neos, for Caradina, for Sulawesi. My guppies love it. My Corydoras love it. My Plecos love it. It's just a good food.
Awesome. So let's take a look at, since the tank's right next to you, let's see if we can take a look at that real quick.
Yeah. So let me grab my phone and get on StreamYard on the phone quick.
You bet. And LJ said, whether you like it or not, you guys are streaming the Clash Shrimp contests together. So I may even, since I won't be able to make it to the Clash, maybe I'll mail out some stuff from my tank for the sake of entering and just see what happens. I'm not sure how many categories that they'll have in the contest. I know when you get into like some of the fancy guppy contests, a lot of the times they'll have a male blue category, a female blue category, all through the colors, and then they'll go in through all through the patterns and different fin shapes. So it can get pretty crazy with a lot of entries really fast. Make you big here real quick, Tim, so to speak.
Of course, it's not going to focus on them naturally, right?
Yeah, that's how it always works.
Got one here up in the front. Let's see if we can get him to focus.
So these look like, I'm sure you already said it, but these look like red tigers, judging from the red stripes on the side.
They're orange eye, red tiger, blue body. So they're a red tiger that show a blue body, and they also have an orange eye.
Okay. Now I've heard a lot of rumors, and I've never seen any substantial evidence behind it. But rumors that orange eye shrimp are blind. Can you seal the deal on that? I don't personally believe that's the case, but maybe you have some other information.
Uh, I don't think it's true, but I'm honestly not positive. This one's up against the glass. Let me see if he moves if I tap it. I don't know. I've never really tried, so yeah, I don't know.
Is the orange eye, is that a fairly difficult trait to get? Is it something that breeds true? Or is there kind of like an anomaly that just happens occasionally?
It is a recessive trait, but once you breed it in there, it is going to breed pretty much true.
Oh man, there's my face. Let's go back here. And one last call, hashtag Tim to get your name in the hat for some free shrimp food. And then we'll wrap things up. So, all right. So we'll give you guys 10, 15 seconds here. If you have any questions, feel free to post some questions here before we finish up. Otherwise, we'll finish up the drawing, and then we'll let Tim get some sleep because it's getting a little later over on the East Coast, and Tim works a funky shift.
Yeah, I wake up at like 3 in the morning every day without an alarm. It's brutal.
Scotty said the Clash doesn't officially have a shrimp category, but there is an invert class. And I'd imagine if your shrimp are good enough to get second at an Aquashella shrimp contest, they could probably beat out some lame old snails pretty easy.
Well, the snails have their own class this year because the devil decided to sponsor that.
There are some. I've kept unshrimp related, but while we're talking inverts, I've kept a variety of crayfish type species, and there are some pretty awesome crayfish out there as far as color morphs and stuff. So
Yep.
So if anybody brings some of the cool crayfish, maybe they'll give your shrimp a run for their money.
Yeah, it's very possible.
So, all right. Tom got in. Looks like the last couple entries have rolled in.
All right.
So, after the absolute disaster the other day of me trying to run a giveaway off my excuse for a laptop, I've got the Fish Fam. Maybe you guys can't. Oh, there it is. The Fish Fam giveaway tool. Oh boy. It's open on my phone. It'll announce it in the stream, I hope. So right now it looks like we have 20 some people talking or watching, and we currently have 19 entries, which seems pretty close. So I'm gonna hit the spin button and then we'll record it. And if Matt from Liquid Zoo OnlyFans fishfam.link, Sioux City Chevrolet Malibu has done all his work, then we'll get a announcement in the old channel.
Hey, Mike, can we run this twice since I hit 600 subs? I'd like to give it to 2 different people.
Awesome. Yeah. So since you hit
Same
600
hashtag, make it
subs,
super simple. No one else has to do anything extra. Just need 2 clicks from you.
all right. Awesome. So congratulations on 600. And for the first person that gets some super awesome food from Tim, it's Vibes Aquatics. So congrats, Vibes. If you
Right.
can
Congrats, vibes.
message myself or Tim either through email or on Discord, we can get you hooked up. So that'll be the first winner. And nope. So I broke Matt's toy the other day, and for shits and giggles, spun the wheel in somebody else's stream. So I think he got it fixed. So he turned it back on. So here's the second one. Congrats, Vibes, and for 600, since oops, see if I can get my phone to work. We'll get the
All
next
right,
one.
vibes. I'll bring that to Clash for you.
Oh, since I recorded it, I got to make a new one. Oh boy, sorry. Let me collect some comments here. All right, so 19 entries. Here we go for the second bag of shrimp food. Vibes didn't win twice. He can't win twice. That's not allowed. The second one is Amisa. So Amisa, congratulations.
All right. Congratulations, Amisa. Send me an
Amisa,
email, cryptkeeperaquatics@gmail.com, and I will be sure to get that sent right out to you.
awesome. So if you guys hit up Tim, he'll get you squared away. If you can't get a hold of him, feel free to get a hold of me. But it's been fun. Tim, thanks for your time. I had a great time. I've got a bunch of notes here that I've taken. I'm going to go back. I usually don't rewatch my streams, but I'm going to go back and rewatch this one so I can double up on some information and get things figured out. And it seemed like people enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys learned something. I'm going to talk to Tim, and we're going to see, maybe we'll do kind of part 2 where we delve a little bit deeper, and we'll just kind of bounce back and forth between my channel and Tim over at Crypt Keeper Aquatics, and have some fun with it. So if there are any last minute questions before we let Tim go catch some Z's, feel free to post them up. Otherwise, to everybody that's here, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. Again, hope you enjoyed it. Tim, I hope you enjoyed talking with me. I definitely had fun.
Absolutely.
I learned some stuff.
Thank you so much. It was definitely a pleasure today.
Awesome. Great. Adam McReynolds stopping by at the end. Andy Carson's here. There's a few people that may have stopped by that I didn't say hi to. If I didn't reach out and personally say hi to you on the stream, maybe it was just mid-conversation. I try to keep up with everybody in the chat. But that'll be all for now. Keep an eye out. We'll post up when the next one of these is. And if you have any questions that we didn't cover, or if you're interested in a specific topic, just buzz us a message or leave a comment on the video itself. And that way we can prepare some material and be prepared for next time to kind of get down into the weeds of things, so that everybody can be more successful at keeping and breeding shrimp and moving up in the world. So thanks, guys. Thanks again, Tim. And we'll see you all later.
Thank you so much. See you later, guys.